Well, welcome to Energy Data as a Service Insight, sponsored by Data Wrangler by Clockworks. Let me get right to the point of this session. What we'd like to do is show schools, those school officials, facility managers, business agents who are watching, a couple of different ways on how to increase money in your general fund, or as most people refer it, Fund 10. We'll talk about Food Service Fund 50, like in Wisconsin, Fund 21 in Colorado, Fund 2 in Minnesota. Each state has different letter designations for their food service fund, but we'll talk about how you take money from the food service fund and put it into the general fund. We'll also talk about how to reduce electrical demand and consumption so that you can put more money into the general fund and perhaps even apply for Fund 80 or Fund 3 or other community-based funds. The purpose of this entire session is to help schools understand how they can put more money in the general educational fund. Again, my name is Wayne Dean. I'm the Vice President of Development for Clockworks. I'll show you how power companies charge you for energy, and I'll explain a little bit more about demands, tariffs, peak and non-peak charges. But more importantly, I'm going to give you a couple of tips right away on what you can do to control some energy cost at your school. We've developed a unique software that schools are using to help reduce their energy cost, and I'll speak a little bit more about that. But what I really want schools to get today is the opportunity to understand really how the power companies charge. Once you understand how the power company is charged, you might be able to make some smaller item changes to save some power and save some energy cost at the school. This should only take about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to review the energy bills. Again, I'll talk about tariffs, demands, peak, non-peak charges. Then we'll show you a unique way on how to use some funds from your food service fund, and some other schools will give you some examples of what schools are doing right now. The idea is to put some steps, gives you some steps on how to put more money into that pocket of Fund 10. We'll end with some questions, but I always like to start these by how I'd like it to end. I hope at the end of this presentation, what you'll do is send us a copy of a recent energy bill to wayne.datawrangler.us. That way we'll be able to do a free audit of the bill that you have, determine what your energy costs for demand are versus your consumption costs, determine what tariff you are, and even see if you might qualify for some of the different programs to help the school save energy. Again, I want to make sure that you understand that the entire purpose today is go back to this whole idea of putting more money into the general fund. First of all, one has to understand how the power companies charge you for energy. Many of you have heard the term kilowatts or kilowatt hours, kWh, and it's basically designed to figure out how many watts of power that a certain piece of equipment is using throughout the building. And that's really what that meter that we have on our homes and what we have in the schools reads. It reads the kilowatts that the school is using or the building is using throughout the day. But understanding how they bill for what's called peak and non-peak, typically on like a CG1, a general secondary tariff, the power companies say, okay, between 9 a.m. and 9 at night, Monday through Friday, we're going to charge a different peak than what we did, a different charge for basically during the day, weekends. And sometimes, like in Colorado, they call it time of use. In Wisconsin, they call it peak and non-peak. But basically, we need to look at how the power companies choose to bill you, not only for consumption, how much power one actually uses, but the demand. So what happens is the power companies take readings every 15 minutes. This does not show up on your bill, but they take a 15-minute increment. And whenever the building sets the highest peak of usage, that's what you get charged for the rest of the month. And later on, I'll show you a graph of one school typical day. But let's say the school sets a peak at September 16th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All the students are back in school. The HVAC is still running. The shop teachers got the arc welders going. The home ec teachers got all the ovens going on. The kitchen staff is still washing dishes. And all of a sudden, the school sets that peak at 2 o'clock on September 16th. Whatever that peak is, that's what the school gets charged for, regardless of whether that peak was only set for just a couple of minutes and then the usage dropped down again. So again, they're taking 15-minute readings, and whenever you set the peak, you get charged that. They also have what's called the delivery charge, or we call it the trailing charge. The power company takes the 11-month rolling period. And whenever the school used the highest amount of electricity for a single day, let's say again, we use last May 5th, as the largest day that they've had in the last 11 months, the school is charged again for that 1 day usage on this month's bill. So every month, the power company is looking at the previous months, and the largest 1 day usage they had in those 11 months gets added to this bill. And the power companies say we need to do that. We need to charge for people not only for what they consume, how much point in the gray area of this piece that you're looking at, but we also have to charge you for the people who use the most amount of power. And they say that they have to do that to be able to have money for infrastructure improvements. For example, in Wisconsin, they've decommissioned all nuclear, so they're almost 90% of all the power is generated through coal or natural gas. And the power companies say, we need to charge the people who use the power at the most optimal time more money than anybody else, even though, let's say they're charging right here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the school building, the highest peak is set. It didn't cost the power company any more to produce the power at that time, but they're charging you more for it. So when you look at a school bill, one of the things you're going to look at is, again, the kilowatts, how many kilowatts they use throughout the month. But when you look at the bill, there are these other charges for demand and energy. So when you look at a bill, you might sit there and say, well, what's the demand charge versus my energy charge? So in this situation, the demand charges are that trailing charge I was talking about was $567. Then they have a demand charge at $6.95 per kilowatt that adds to $1,940. That's the demand. This has nothing to do with the consumption. The consumption is the energy charges. So in this situation, the peak time from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, they were charged for $1,500. And off peak, they had even a higher charge. So this school is using a lot of power at a different time. And so your critical peak is during the day. So when you add it all up, there's over $8,000 basically in the consumption. But on this school, over 2,000 is actually in demand charges. So here's another example of a bill where the demand charges, again, are high at that 1 day, that peak that we were talking about, $1.67, but then at $6.95 for the on-peak demand charges. So when one looks at the bill, what you want to do is separate your bill between demand charges and energy charges. And if your demand charges are more than 30% of the entire bill, you need to do something to start thinking about how we can reduce the demand charges to reduce our cost. So here's a typical bill from a recent Random Lake School District. You can see that they're charged at $4,919 for demand. That trailing charge was $960. So of the $10,000 bill, over 50% is not consumption. It is the demand charges. I kind of correlated to this. Let's say one went to a restaurant tonight and you had steak and you had a $20 steak. At the end of the night, the waitress gives you the bill and says, yep, I consumed the $20 steak. That's what I consumed. And then she says, oh, by the way, you sat here at 6 o'clock, our most optimal time, so we're going to charge you another $20 on top of that for the demand, for sitting here at a demand time. Oh, by the way, you've been here once a month for the last 11 months, so we're going to take the highest bill we charged a couple months ago, and we're going to add that again to your bill. So now we're up to $60. Oh, by the way, we're also going to charge you what's called the fuel adjustment charge. You'll see that on the bill sometimes, what's called the FCA, fuel charge adjustment. Power companies say it costs us more money to produce power, so we're going to pass that cost on to you. That'd be the equivalent of a restaurant saying, hey, it costs us more to have our food delivered to us, so we're going to charge you a food delivery charge. The point of my story is that when one looks at the bill, there's so much more to the bill than what the school actually consumed. So here's an example of a typical school day. The HVAC is started, the facility managers get the checkpoint of the chiller set point starting at 5 a.m. And as the power starts to go, as people come into the building, it starts to peak. And then the staff comes in, they turn on the dishwasher, that Hobart dishwasher sitting there idling for a couple of hours at 160 degrees, even before that they even started washing dishes. There's a second peak here now at 12 30, because now the students come through the first group and they're starting to wash the trays again for the second group. So they had another peak here. And then it starts to drop down as other activities in schools start to mitigate. And then the HVAC starts to end and it comes down. This peak right here at 10 o'clock creates that larger charge, that demand charge that we were talking about. What's going on at 10 o'clock besides the dishwater that's going on? As I said, there could be other things going on in the building that the facility manager should be looking at and saying, hey, can any of this be shifted? And not necessarily to off peak, which means saying you don't have to shift and wash dishes at 2 o'clock in the morning. What's going on at the same time that we can choose to move even only 15 minutes? Now, the power company doesn't share those 15-minute increments with you. Data Wrangler, our product that does, our product reads it every 15 seconds and can tell the school, hey, what's going on here right now is there's some other things that are happening. And how we do that is we feed data into our AI. We get data from the school as far as what's going on. We install a meter behind the main electrical meter and it reads the amperage, and we can tell that this equipment is going over to this shop and this is going, the football coach turned on the lights at the football field, so that we can predict and prescribe optimization for the building. And that's how we save schools an average of 15 to 20% a month, by saying this is what's going on in the building and here's what you can shift only by a few minutes, so the peak is reduced so that school's not paying those large demand charges. This is an example of one school where we're reading throughout the day what's going on, and we make some recommendations to the school, like change the optimizing of the chiller to different set points, change some of the east and west gym set points. It's not always just HVAC. It could be things like large motors that are running in the school. We look at the entire envelope of the building. But the key is the facility managers typically know when the building is using the most amount of power, but they always don't know what's contributing to that can be shifted. So we can predict and prescribe and say to the school, hey, if you do this, this is exactly what you will save. You don't have to be running around every day turning off these lights, motion sensors. It could be a pattern that we start to see the building starts to develop and say, hey, the staff is coming in at 8:30 in the kitchen. They're turning on all the equipment all at once. If they just did this, this, and this will change and save them money. And many times it's just behavioral, where if you say to the kitchen staff, hey, you're turning on that dishwasher at 9 o'clock in the morning, why are we doing that? Can we wait until 10 o'clock to turn that on? Or, yeah, your HVAC is kicking on right at 8 o'clock as all the students are coming in. Perhaps we don't need to have the compressor in the HVAC turning on, but if we start the fans running at 8 o'clock, it starts moving air throughout the building and it starts to slowly cool the building without setting a peak. So the idea again is, how can we reduce the peak from the knowledge we get from energy data? But what's exciting is this. In schools with the federal lunch program typically have their food service account, and all financial activities, as you know, those of you who are business agents that are watching this now, you have different checking accounts. You have the Fund 10 for general education. You might have Fund 80 for extracurricular. You have the fund for your federal food program. All expenditures related to food services can be recorded in this fund. Any fund balance must be retained or used for food services. But you are allowed to take and say that, hey, this amount of power is being used in the kitchen. So thus, instead of paying the entire energy bill out of Fund 10, can we take money from the surplus we might have in Fund 50 or Fund 21 in Colorado and deposit that into the account? Remember those buckets of gold I showed you? Can we take money from Fund 50 and use that monies to pay for kitchen-related energy? And while one can do that, the challenge has been for schools to be able to show the state, if audited, that yes, this is exactly what power was used in the kitchen. That's what we're able to do. We're able to go through, and here's an example of one school where in a monthly basis, we're showing the school that $4,161 was spent for each one of these activities in the kitchen. So that's on a monthly basis. So $4,161 can be taken from Fund 50 or Fund 21 and deposited into Fund 10. Additionally, this same school, with the other activities that we're showing, on a monthly basis, we save that school an average of over $3,000. So between giving them data without adding any new equipment, without having spent a lot of money to upgrade different things, this is purely based on behavioral changes. The school's able to deposit, increase the revenue that they have in Fund 10 for $98,000, nearly $100,000, just from having this data that they'd never had before about each one of the kitchen components, how much it was using in power. That's exciting stuff to be able to take that for those schools who've got money in the Fund 50, Fund 21, the food service program, and to be able to put that into Fund 10 so that you can put more money into the classroom instead of into the kitchen. So how that works with us is we basically install the equipment that captures that data, and then we charge the schools only about $100 to $200 a month for those monthly reports so that they can use those reports to satisfy the Department of Education. And in Wisconsin, our program has already been approved by the state, the way that we do the accounting. And each month we give the school, here's a report of what your kitchen used electricity wise, so that you can either take from Fund 50 and write a check as part of your payment to the power company, or just deposit that into Fund 10, since Fund 10 is paying the entire electrical bill. Fund 80 in Wisconsin, Fund 3 in Minnesota, some states have a community service fund. What they're saying is the school is being used for other activities that are non-educational. So this group is using the gym for activities, this group is using that. And in the past, the schools are able to say, well, yeah, the cost of opening the building for non-educational activities costs us this much, as far as for the janitor to come in. He came in at 5 o'clock and had to stay till 10 to close the building. And on Saturday, he worked for the basketball program and he did this. And so the schools have been able to take that fund and money from the fund to help reimburse back into the Fund 10 for activities that are non-education related. Now we're able to come back to the school and say, hey, here's what every community activity that you had throughout the building used power. We tie our AI, our artificial intelligence, and our software into the school calendar, and we can come back and sit there and say, hey, this is how much kilowatts these different activities, we're working on the construction of the floor, the elementary school did this, the sports club did this, Key Club did this, and we can come back and tell you every activity that's happening in the school and what the energy cost was per that activity. So that if your state, like in Wisconsin, has Fund 80 numbers, a FIT fund, that you can apply for all this cost, that it costs you to use that power that wasn't educational related specifically for Fund 10. So the idea is, again, knowledge is power, but most schools have never been able to get this granular, this detail on how the building's using power and when. So it's pretty exciting to come back to a school and say, hey, you used last month $5,000 in power that wasn't directly related to Fund 10. Instead of paying that bill out of Fund 10, seek reimbursement from Fund 80, Minnesota from Fund 3, or other states that have funds. And even in states that don't have some type of a reimbursement for activities, what the schools are telling us is, hey, we're charging a rental fee, but now we can justify why the rental fee is, so we can show an activity what it really costs us energy-wise to open up that building. So again, the data that we're providing can save the school money on your general usage of electricity, can save you money from Fund 50 or Fund 21, and save you money from your community activities. The idea is, let's put more money into the school budget program as far as Fund 50 and Fund 10, Fund 80. So just example, just last month alone, we saved Kettle Moraine School District $18,000, Muskego, Norway, $14,000, Greendale, $9,000, just by giving them data. You know, we like to say knowledge is power, but our knowledge will save you power. So our process is this: we install electrical metering system that reads the power. We work to educate your operators on the utility bills and the rating and demands and the critical need powers. We do initial review, going through the building, setting up our energy portal so that your operators can see how the building's using power and when. And once a month, Just once a month, we spend about 2 hours with your facility team to identify saving potentials and opportunities. Then we validate the electrical buildings based on the actions that we take. So again, the idea is, remember, in addition to saving you money power, we can identify if there's power factor issues. We had one school that had over $30,000 in power factor issues because of a problem that they had with the wiring with their ice rink for their hockey team. And we were able to immediately, as soon as we turned on, we were able to save them power factor. We can provide data for energy reports, as I said, for government entities, reporting, budgeting. We can help the school determine whether there's how much it's going to cost if they want to upgrades from different equipment. We can prescript and prescribe optimization of equipment, but we're giving you an electrical blueprint of how and when that building is using power. So the ROI for things like even battery storage, if the school's at solar and they want to know, are they really saving money on solar? Do they have a windmill and they're creating power from that? We can help the school fully understand what's going on within the building. And again, we've saved our school clients this year over $1 million already in energy costs, money that goes right back into the school, right back. And here's a list of some of this, just a few of the schools that we're already saving money at. All we have to do is this: for a free evaluation of whether we even can offer you any savings, we need to see a copy of your bill. From the copy of the bill, we'll analyze what tariff you're on, we'll analyze your demand charges versus your consumption, and we'll come back and say, hey, here's what the potential might be to save you some money. Not every school qualifies. If the school doesn't have a large demand charge, if the school doesn't have a large bill, now, we're not saying that we're a fit for everybody, but the idea is, do you have a bill, let's say $10,000, but you've got a kitchen in that school and you've got a surplus of money in Fund 50 or Fund 21 that you have to spend down. Like in Colorado, you can only have 3 months of your typical cost of running the kitchen before you have to submit to the Department of Education a plan for how you're going to reduce that. In Wisconsin, if you have so much of a surplus, again, you have to spend it down. So we're helping schools save money through energy optimization. And just to let you know, depending on what the school qualifies for, we do have a shared savings program where there's no upfront cost to school to install our equipment. We'll take the risk, we'll install the equipment, we'll only work off a percentage of what we save the school. That's one option. Some schools say we don't want to be on that, where 1 month we pay it this month and it goes up and down. We just want to pay a fixed fee and know what that is up front. So we have that program. So again, the bill is important so we can determine what program the school might even qualify for, if any. So as I conclude this right now, I just want to say that you can call us at our 800 number, 844-769-POWER 3500, or you can email our different sales staff in Colorado or Wisconsin or other states. You can call me directly or email me, Wayne Dean. Mike Roberts works for us in Wisconsin. Kylie Joyner is our Colorado rep. Ryan is our Northern Wisconsin representative. So just reach out to us and let us know that you have a copy of the bill that you'd like us to analyze. And then we'll let you know whether there's anything that we can do for you or not. So if you have any questions, what I'd like to do is just let you go ahead and call me at the 800 number. I'm starting to go over my 20-minute allotment of time, but I wanted you to have this opportunity to look at what we do and whether there's a way, as we started this, how we can take money from these different pots, put more money into the general operating Fund 10 account. So the idea is we just want to help you put more money into the classroom. So again, thank you very much for your attention. Let me know if you need any additional information from us, and have a great day.